All right, we are back with another Music with Max video. I'm sorry, that just popped into my head and now I've said it out loud. That's the title. That's not. But anyway, we're going to be discussing the music from the Wheel of Time television show. I'm here with Max, who has a master's in music theory and he has done a full breakdown of especially the music from seasons 1 and 2. He hasn't finished his breakdown of the music from season 3, but we do talk about it a little bit in this video. So this is part 2. There's still going to be at least one more, maybe 2 more parts to this series because we talked for a very long time. And yeah, spoilers in this video. Not really heavy spoilers, but I am going to say I do allude to general character arcs of 2 characters beyond what is available in the show. I don't think it would spoil anything specific for you, but it's there. The other thing I am going to mention, currently we are trying to get the show renewed. So there is a SaveWoT campaign. As of my recording this intro, we have over 100,000 signatures. So join the chorus. The chorus, ooh, that works very well for a video about music. But join us. I'm trying to keep my expectations in check, but this story deserves it. This cast deserves it. This crew, these writers, Lorne Balfe, the composer of the music that I am making this video about, deserves it. We deserve more. So sign the petition. It is linked in the description below. And yeah, let's get into this.
Let's be nerdy with Let's Be Nerdy. Let's be nerdy with Let's Be Nerdy.
We could stick with the Dragon Reborn theme for a little bit. What I had found is that the first time we hear that sort of cluster of themes together is right in the sort of cold open of the pilot, where Moraine is doing the sort of voiceover introduction to the world, introduction to her quest.
The only thing we know for certain is that this child is coming of age now, and we must find them before the dark does.
We get the same stuff at the end when we're hearing the beginning of the books. Ages come and pass.
Yeah.
And often the slower melody and the ostinato end up being played together. We continue to hear this around the idea of the dragon, prophecies of the dragon as a figure that people have an attitude towards. And so that's why we often hear it when we're with Logain, because Logain believes that he is the dragon.
Interesting. Okay.
That persists through, I think, quite a bit of quite a few of the scenes where Rand and Logain are together.
Embrace this horse. You know how to do that at least, don't you? You need to grab it. You are surrendering to it, boy. That's it. Make it yours. Don't pretend to be dumb or hide it. If you want power, you take it. Careful, boy, don't take too much. You could burn yourself out. Let go, boy. It's too much.
But, of course, the more Rand steps into the dragon role, the more we hear it from him. And an example that stays in my memory in season 3, which I have not exhaustively added to the spreadsheet yet. So take most of my season 3 comments with a grain of salt. They're not ones that I'm sure I've found everything, but I know that we hear it very prominently at the end of episode 2 when Bear/Amis gives the part of the Aiel prophecy.
He will come from the west, beyond the spine of the world. Of the blood, but not raised by the blood. He will tie us together with bonds we cannot break. He will take us back home. And he will destroy us.
So it's again connected with prophecy, and so it's interesting that to some extent, the more Rand becomes the dragon, especially sort of early season 2, we hear it around him a lot. But much like Moraine's personal melody is not always played for her, sometimes we hear her as the Aes Sedai melody.
Mm.
With Rand, we hear him as the Dragon Reborn melody when it's about him being the Dragon Reborn or having
fulfilling
to live up to
prophecy.
prophecy, or exactly. And there are a lot of times in season 3 where instead we hear his new personal theme, because we're finally seeing sort of the citing. There are always like shades of meaning that we can get into with a lot of these melodies. And it's interesting how sometimes melodies get sort of added to a complex of melodies around a given idea, even if they didn't appear in the title track. So in addition, I would call part of the like Amon Sindai Dragon Reborn like a melody complex, a counterpoint to the main melody. I forget exactly where it begins in relation to the main melody. Let's see if I can do it. So this is the main melody. And this is with the counterpoint.
Hey.
So it's that. So we hear that only in the soundtrack albums, not in the main Amon Sindai, but we often hear it together.
So the Amon Sindai, that's the
just the slower
one, yeah. Are you saying, is that the Dragon Reborn theme, or is that?
Yeah, so that's the Amon Sindai is Dragon Reborn.
Yeah.
And that extra melody appears, I think, in that the opening with Moraine, putting on her iconic lesbian suspenders, and then I believe again when she's reciting the opening of the books. We also hear it then quite a bit in 107 as Rand is, coming, accepting who he is.
That door is made of iron. 3 men your size couldn't break it down.
And so I think that counterpoint adds a lot of pathos, and it's not just sort of like, ooh, the mysterious dragon, the prophecy, isn't he very scary? Instead, it adds the sort of like human struggle and the pain that comes along with being the dragon or being near the dragon, being part of the story. And interestingly, this is something that Camille from Queers of Time had reached out about. They were a bit perplexed, maybe, or just curious about the fact that we hear that melody at the end of 206 as part of the passion of Egwene, really.
That makes sense. I mean, those of us who have fit, and I will put spoilers on the video at the beginning, but I think Rand and Egwene's story have a lot of reflections in each other.
What's interesting in this scene, the chorus from Egwene's track starts the verse, I think. Yeah, the verse. It changes a little bit in different circumstances, but that during the track, The Thrill of Battle, which is this moment where Egwene breaks, where we're cutting back and forth to the fight with Rima on the street, we hear just those like 3 notes out of context gradually coming into the texture. We hear them actually in the bass first in a minor version, something like, and then I think as she begins to choke, we start hearing floating over the top, and it starts to pick up, and at first we're kind of recognizing it like the Egwene verse. Instead, it begins to turn into which I think is interesting, that it might be that Lorne Balfe constructed Egwene's sort of personal melody for season 2 so that it could
It would.
transition into this sort of this melody that goes together with the Dragon Reborn theme, but doesn't maybe necessarily mean the dragon, but rather like the kind of like Passion of the Christ type struggles that folks have to go through, especially Egwene, as in some ways a kind of foil to Rand, or sort of structural mirror to him. So that was it. And then we could jump to, I think 59:25 is one of the first times that we hear that same like 3, 2, 1.
We have to help her. If we do, we can't help Egwene.
Yeah.
So now we're hearing. So first we heard, which is a minor mode of that, and then now we're hearing it higher in the voice.
Yeah.
And I think there are some reasons to think that it's the Egwene theme, but it turns out that it can also turn into this theme that goes along with the Dragon Reborn theme.
My cup. That's the size of your world, Egwene. That's it. Pour the water. That's the size of your world. That's the size of your world.
Oh.
From there, we get the full sort of string that I think a lot of people will recognize immediately, because at that point, you're really clued into the music. But it's interesting that before the cello comes in with what is very recognizably now the version of this 3-note intro that turns into that Dragon Reborn counterpoint or counter melody, that at first we hear the voice going like it's the Egwene theme. So it's I suppose some people would hate the idea of Egwene getting musically sort of encroaching on the dragon territory.
But those people are wrong.
It works so, it works so well here. And this, you know, in many ways is the moment where Egwene gets set on a path to be that kind of plot balance to Rand. So that establishes how these kinds of melodies can get mixed together and kind of morph into each other, and sometimes show up in unexpected places where it gets you thinking about what the connection actually is here, and it lends a new significance to things. But I think there's one other example that will lead us back to the glass columns scenes that we can talk about and watch together. And that's how even different components of the melody, as in sort of split over time from a single track, can mean very different things. And I think there's probably something to be said with Egwene's theme, where I think there's something very different about the verses and the chorus. Certainly, the chorus shows up in that first, the sort of tracking shot as she walks throughout the tower. But is interrupted briefly while she's looking at the Amaryllis stole by the Aes Sedai theme. Because this is Egwene is still at this moment very connected to the idea of the Aes Sedai as an institution, which I think is what the Aes Sedai melody is about. But then the texture doesn't change at all. You just hear that melody and you're like, oh, I guess Egwene has ambitions. But then it goes back to the melody from the chorus from the Egwene track. So there's something I think a little bit more upbeat about that. So they certainly get used differently throughout the season. But it's actually the Kaizen Shar track that I think establishes very different meanings for the verse and the chorus.
Okay, so just not everybody has the soundtrack in their
Yeah,
mind. So what is the
we
Kaizen
could.
Shara track? Yeah.
Okay, yeah, great idea. I'll play it if you want. We could listen to the track a little bit too, just us, if that helps. But
Sure.
so the verse of the Kaizen Shar, which is Old Blood, is.
Okay.
And the chorus, I should actually get my notation up so that I don't have to do it from memory and wonder if I'm going to remember all the right notes. We often hear actually the chorus sort of fade in at the end and then loop around back to the beginning, but in the track it goes. And if you've been having maybe not the easiest time immediately calling to mind the sound of the track from just me playing the melody on the piano, I think that speaks to, I mean, how much Lorne's talent as an orchestrator and just composer in general is evident in The Wheel of Time because of how iconic the actual sound of the, our native daughters and all of the mix of instruments he puts together for those tracks. I think it's also worth sort of atomizing all these components so that we can track them separately because they don't always appear in a way that is instantly recognizable. But once we get used to the melody by itself, we can notice that it shows up in all these different ways. So if we go to the lanterns bit, I think we get a very clear example. But let me actually talk a little bit first about the lanterns track. So my thesis here is that the verse of Kaizen Shar, Old Blood, which is associated specifically with the Two Rivers, with sort of folksiness and the old blood of Manetheren and these rural folks being able to fight back against the shadow much more than anyone anticipated. And the lyrics have, I think, a lot to do with like remembering your roots and everything and drawing strength from that. So this is very much the Two Rivers theme, but the chorus is the Tuatha'an theme. And it's not really clear from the lyrics at all. I think the lyrics were imagined as though this would always be a Two Rivers centric theme, but just the way that it progresses throughout. But one thing that really solidifies the verse of Kaizen Shar as the Two Rivers theme is the fact that the really beautiful plaintive cello melody from Lanterns that we've heard once per season now is kind of derived from it. Play a little bit of that, and then we can listen to how we hear those two in quick succession in the Lanterns scenes. So this would be the verse by itself. So it stays, it basically repeats twice, right, at the beginning. This is a very typical way that melodies, they repeat their initial sort of phrase and then sort of heighten the drama of the melody. The Lanterns theme sort of has some very quiet, hushed, beautiful chord changes, and then a solo cello comes in. And so the melodies don't quite line up, and the rhythms and the sort of phrase rhythm doesn't line up exactly. But if I try to sort of play them together as close as you can get them, and here it sounds bad if I play them together, but there's the same. So that same
Yeah.
shape in the melody repeats, and there's some sort of truncation where there's a measure sort of skipped. It was kind of difficult to notate this just because I think they're taking a lot of expressive freedom. They're not like using a strict pulse. So the Lanterns theme itself is also very obviously Two Rivers and Beltane and this ritual that they have, and roots them even temporally when they celebrate it again the next year. And then interestingly, we hear Lanterns in season 3, Rand and Lan are practicing sword forms.
Wait. Her mind is elsewhere. She put her. You want to talk about it? Right. Potting silk. Come.
And I wonder if, even though that's the scene in episode 2 of season 3 where Rand, this is not the time that he opens up to Lan. That's in the Ruidian episode, right? But in this scene, Lan is just like, "What's on your mind?" He's like, "I don't want to talk about it."
Yeah.
But I think what's on his mind is that he doesn't have his father's sword anymore.
Yeah.
But this is still a connection to his father because it's something that, that he got the idea of carrying a Heronmark blade from the fact that his father had one. And this is him forming a kind of fatherly bond with Rand. And so I think hearkening back to the ritual that he had for his mother while he's on the way to meet his actual the land of his bio parents is really poignant for that scene. Even though I don't think like it doesn't, unless we're gonna do all kinds of crazy math with the chronology, it's not Beltane again. So it's even more significant, I think, that we're hearing it just to clue us into what this moment means for Rand. We could listen to the lantern scene because so we hear first that sort of cello interpretation of the Kaizen Shar verse, and then we hear a very richly harmonized version of the Kaizen Shar verse. And there's always this long, slow gliss.
Maybe we should be at Beltane to light a candle for her.
Whole point is to help guide her spirit back to us. Doesn't matter where we are when we do it, really.
How long does it take before the Wheel of Time turns someone's spirit back into the world again?
Wish I knew. But I'm sure there's a reason no one can remember their previous lives. All we can do is the best we can with the life that's given to us. And take comfort from it. But no matter what happens, what pain we face, what heartbreak, even death, the wheel keeps turning. Always. We try again? Maybe do a little better than the last time.
Yeah.
I think that's the sort of thickest harmony version of the Kaizen Shar verse. You do hear it a bunch of times, even in that first episode, and then a lot of the time whenever we're either in the Two Rivers or we're we're remembering the Two Rivers, or we're with our Two Rivers crew. We hear it very, very plaintively at the end of the first episode, once by itself, and then we hear the Tamaral Island theme, which is the so the end of episode 1 has the Two Rivers theme, the Tamaral Island Web of Destiny theme, in succession and then played together. We're always doing things with remembering roots, the old blood. But
so the Tamaral Island theme, what can I ask? Like, is that the Aes Sedai? No.
So that's it begins a lot like some versions of the Aes Sedai theme,
Okay.
but we hear it. So the translation, I guess, on the album is Web of Destiny, and we
So it's
tend
like
to
the
hear it
Teviran
at.
theme?
It's I don't think it's like it's kind of the musical equivalent of the wheel weaves as the wheel wills.
Right,
We
makes
hear
sense,
it
yeah.
actually
Yeah.
really prominently when Barney Harris leaves the show. Basically,
Mhm.
it swells up as it's becoming clear that the gate is closing and Matt's not going with them, and they start shouting his name, and it
Yeah,
just
yeah.
blares to end the episode.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Come on, Matt!
The gate's closing!
What are you doing? Matt's on through! Matt! Come on, Matt! Matt!
Battle of Beltane.
Perrin! Perrin?
It doesn't get used as often as you'd think, actually, but it's around a bit. It actually is around when Egwene and Perrin arrive at the Tuatha'an camp for the first time.
Please.
As though, even though it was the wolves that gathered them there, that there's still a kind of wheel weaves as the wheel wills in terms of them finding people who can keep them safe.
I just had a really weird thought, but the music is reminding me of the chapter icons in the books. It's this sort of like setting the scene, like that's that feeling that I'm getting, like of, oh yeah.
I think the whole creative team has talked a lot about thinking of this as, I think in some of the behind the scenes stuff in season 1, Lorne Balfe would say it's kind of operatic because it's the, there's always singing about what's going on. But other folks compared it to the chorus in Greek drama, where the chorus is telling you what is happening, what the significance of what's happening is, commenting on the action. And they talk a lot about that in terms of just the old tongue text being a commentary. But I think, you're also right that they're doing it in that way that is kind of like, here is the thing that you need to pick up on about this scene. Here is like the piece of other media that's not words that is going to clue you into the emotion of this moment in the same way as the chapter icons. That's very cool. I like that.
Yeah. For those who haven't, like you, I don't know, some people might watch this who haven't read the books, but every chapter has an icon at the front of it that typically will relate to at least one thing that has happening in the chapter. And the reason I thought of it is because the wheel is one of the most common chapter icons in the books. And it really is just because, the wheel is always weaving. So the joke I often think or thought once I realized that the chapter icons are there, because I'm not very visual, but was, this was I'm not sure what other thing is going on in this chapter, but the wheel is doing its job in this chapter. So we'll put the wheel icon in there, but that's what it is. Like basically there'll be a chapter icon of a wisdom staff, and Nynaeve's going to be in this chapter. Like that's the feeling. Or a dark friend icon. Ooh, there's going to be something ominous in this chapter. And some of the icons actually change meaning as the story goes on, which is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, much like the music is doing. So we could to pivot from how Tamarel Island shows up when Egwene and Perrin arrive at the Tuatha'an camp. We can talk about the chorus and how we do hear it once in the Two Rivers. At least there may be a couple others that that didn't appear on the album soundtracks that I might have missed while watching. Because often I'm doing this project, I'm rewatching the show, and I get so invested in watching the show.
Yeah. You forget
That like I hear music and it's like, oh, I did not get the start time to do the timestamp for my project. There's been music for like a minute and I missed it. So we could jump to one of the times that it shows up along with the Tuatha'an.
Okay.
And I think it will have a lot to say.
I do what I can to forge a better world for her then, where she can enjoy the life she should have had with me.
Who is he? The man that holds your heart. Have you lost him?
No. No, I'd know if I had.
You know, we leave the wagons when we turn 20 to live in the world.
Yeah.
So there, it continues on a little bit. I think that's the moment that stands out the most in season 1. There might be one or two others with there is actually when in episode 5 when they encounter the White Cloaks. There's this thing that is a very typical of battle music, like say, in a lot of classical music when folks were portraying like a struggle between two forces, you hear the melody of one first and then the melody of the other, and it's like the melodies are fighting it out. And we hear the Kaizenschar chorus and then the White Cloak music in quick succession as each of them sort of gain the upper hand in the exchange.
The way of the leaf against the way of the light.
Hurry this way.
You can cover the light with the palm of a child's hand, but a leaf, even if you crush it, bury it, burn it, becomes part of the earth and the air.
We could, if you want, go on to Ruidian episode.
Oh, sure.
And listen to some of those together, because we end up finding it again. But it's interesting that at least in season 1, music that is part of a track that seems like it's going to be all about the Two Rivers, we do hear in the Two Rivers only when Egwene learns to trust the river and let go. And then, much like she floats along the river, the leaf floats along the wind and lands where it lands in its time. And there's something, I think, that's very thematically parallel about all of that. And then the fact that it's also playing, as Egwene is with the Tinkers, realizing that she's trusting her instinct about Rand, for instance. So we hear the Tuatha'an be accompanied in season 3 by that Kaisenshar chorus. It's very close to that season 1 version, very ethereal and slow, when the Tuatha'an arrive in episode 7.
Aaron, Perrin. What are you doing here?
I came home. What happened to you?
Where's Ryan?
So that connects to it, and the fact that it connects these two moments with Aram, arriving and talking about the death of Rain, when in the first season he had been talking to Egwene about the possibility of leading a life outside the Tuatha'an for a while on Rumspringa.
All right, there you have it. That is our discussion of Egwene's theme, the Dragon Reborn theme, the Two Rivers Tuatha'an theme. This is so cool. I think I said this in the previous one, but I really do feel like this felt like the same way I felt when I first started talking with Pez about the costumes, of just like, whoa, just, suddenly things are in Technicolor. And I'm wondering if it's going to impact me watching other shows now, because that definitely happened after talking with Pez. Yeah, I don't know. It's cool. The other thing I will mention again, sign the petition. If you're watching this video, especially if you've gotten this far, you want the show to continue, so sign it. Write a letter. Submit a video on SaveWoT.com. It is linked in the description below. Yeah. And thank you to my patrons. Your continued support makes this possible, so thank you so much. And yeah, with that, I'm gonna end this here, so please like, subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye.